Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm actually quite grateful that I'm here, and especially in my vital years. And my name is Lydia Ruth, and I would like you to go and click the link in the description and go to the page on which I have embedded this because there won't be any ads on it as far as I know. And you can also leave a comment over there and see some of the photos and the links that I have spoken of and all the things I have added to this. And so that's just a better place for you to go. And you can also have a beautiful page to look at while you listen and leave the world behind. Leave all your. Let's just take a break from stress. They say stress is not all bad. Some of it is kind of motivating and good for us, but we can't have prolonged stress. We have to have intermittent stress. And so there are people that recommend things that will relieve you from stress. And I hope that nothing I say here will cause more anxiety or anything that you're going through as a homemaker. I think homemakers especially need to be protected from too much outside anxiety. And sometimes it means you're going to have to turn off any voices and communication that are not related to you outside of the home. And much of that can be the media, which I remember back. I like to play the Remember When. And I remember when the news, you could only get it at 6 o'clock at night if you had a television. And also, it was rare to get a newspaper, and those were passed around so that many of us got it a week later. If we didn't subscribe, someone would give us their old one. And so we weren't in a constant state of agitation and distress because it wasn't always in our face. Well, now you can barely turn on your phone to text a loved one or listen to a nice message without having to see it. And in the old days, I've told you about, look at all these books I've got to read to you today. Do you think I can get that done? In the old days, if you got a newspaper, it had the horrible blaring headlines of the worst stuff, impending war. And remember, our mothers always used to soothe us and calm us by showing us in the Bible where it said there will be wars and rumors of wars, but still I will not come, or something like that. The words of Christ talking about wars and rumors of wars and threats and things like that. And maybe I will include that verse on the page if you'll go over there and listen to me there. And but the newspapers had other things in them. Had a crossword puzzle. They had recipes. They even had a place where you could order the patterns for clothing. And the newspapers had maybe a health article in it or something. And I'm sure they still do. But now the news that you get online won't have that kind of stuff on it. It's just all hard fear. And I wanted to show you, well, I had my phone out here. I wanted to show you the picture I have on my phone today that I took some time ago because it's so calming. And I took it from around here somewhere. And do you ever share pictures on your paper wall calendar? I used to love to share a picture on, when the first of the month came up, a friend of mine would just exchange the calendar pictures. That's really nice. And sometimes we'll exchange our household list or things that we like to do. And I really would suggest that before you begin today, you get ready. And if you're not dressed, you don't have your hair done and your face on, go and do that. And it somehow settles the brain. I don't know why that is. But I can remember times when I decided, well, I wouldn't bother with that. And I must say, too, if you're very young, you can get out of bed, walk around in your pajamas, not fix your hair, nothing, and you'll just look gorgeous because youth is on your side. But as you get more vital, ladies, we have to look after ourselves, and it's going to take a little longer, maybe a lot longer. Uh, so, but I think that's really important because it's important for the brain to feel ready and to look good for yourself. And even if you're living alone, even if you are, have no family around, or you are on your own for some reason, I think that appearance part is very, very important. And I have a young friend who's not yet married, and she tells me that is one of the most important things for her to do. And she also has gotten into maybe reading something different every day, or she sews, so she would sew a skirt, at least one skirt a month, so she would have something different, and she regulates her own life that way. And I think it's really important to have things that you like to do. I love fabrics, and I love to paint pictures, and I also like to move things around in a room or in my house if I have the energy to do that, or the mind to do it. And I like to read. And so today I think that I will do a couple of those extra things. I always have on my list what I want, what I have to do, and what I want to do. And my goal is, if I do what I have to do, if I clean up the kitchen, or if I clean up the bathroom, and I was in the bathroom and I was putting some towels away in there from the laundry, and just happened to kind of dropped one, and I looked on the floor, and there's a lot of dust on the floor, so I thought I better write that down. I need to sweep the bathroom floor. Whereas instead of waiting for, the day that I do that, I decided I wanted to do it, because I like to keep the personal areas really, really clean. And I think also that for homemaking, if you can keep a good attitude, and I think that your appearance helps, and even if you don't like how you look and you don't think you're very pretty, we'd all like to be younger and skinnier and smarter. But even if we don't, let's just do our best. Even if you put on something pretty, you can make someone's day, and maybe make your day work out better too. There's always a chance, though. I remember this when I was years ago. You get all dressed up, and then there'll be some kind of unpleasantness that happens. And I can remember thinking, I got all dressed up for this, and things didn't work out. There's always that chance. But at least if you have bad moments, someone decides they want to tell you off, or if things don't work out with a purchase, or maybe you have a disaster in the kitchen and you drop something and have to clean it all up, at least you will be dressed for it and you'll look nice for it. Well, at least I had my lipstick on, So today I want to just start out with a few things that I'm going to read to you and talk to you about. But I would like you first, before, if this were a real class, I would like for you to clear your mind and settle your emotions for this important life at home. It's not really a job. If it was just a job and no emotion was connected to it, and the people that you love were not in it, it would just be very mechanical, wouldn't it? So it's not like that at home. And I think that I would like to also, first of all, say how sorry I am to you that have written to me or sent me a little card. I've got a little stack of mail over there to remind me, and I will try to get to those really by the end of the year, I hope. I got thrown off this year because of several big family events, and getting ready for those, and then cleaning up afterwards, and kind of readjusting my life in other areas, and I didn't get around to all that correspondence. But I love correspondence, and I remember when I was younger how I thought that the pen and ink was just the key to life. It was a key to something out there. It was a key to I guess, going somewhere when you couldn't go somewhere, or and getting mail was lovely. And that reminds me, I have a little thing here to read to you about that from a book someone sent me called Ceremonials of Common Days. Anybody could write a book like this, because it's just one of those day type books. We used to get those in the 1980s, a day book, a woman's A Simple Woman's Daybook was what it was called, and it would say, what are you wearing? What are you thinking? What are you going to do? And you could write all those things down. But the name of this chapter is ink. And so since I'm apologizing to those of you to whom I owe an answer and a letter, I want to talk about ink. So she writes, ink, especially important to those who live in far places. And I must say that I have a little granddaughter that writing is just a formula for her. She absolutely grasped a hold of it and wants to write to people. So she has lots of friends her age, and of course her old granny, and these letters are just wonderful. And this lady explains the use of ink. Of course, remember when? Do you remember when ink was in a bottle and you had to dip your pen in it? Well, yeah, some of us still were doing that back in the early 1950s, late 1940s. So, yes, we have been from the bottled ink to the ballpoint pen, haven't we? To the text. So, it's not like we've lived for centuries. It's just that things changed so quickly for us. So, ink is a divine commodity. Why do not those who buy and sell realize that the worth of it is far above intrinsic value? Are they not aware that it conquers distances? Yes, that's how I used to feel about it. Making a highway for the hidden things of the heart. Isn't that beautiful? Is there somewhere an exclusive ink shop with salesmen who are connoisseurs of ink, who believe in it? If there is such a business establishment, I would like to advertise their wares. I would have their clientele make large resolves about ink and purchase supplies adequate to their resolutions. There really should be a kind of a shop that is kind of sacred, that has ink in it, and that writing is so special and so wonderful and can be preserved for future generations, that it's treated with great carefulness and delicacy and respect. Not all people would buy ink, but there would be those who would reroute a transcontinental trip to invest in their enchanted fluid. Ink in the large fascinates me, and the promotion of the sale of new bottles of ink appeals to me because of its potential service to mankind. But it is the half-used ink bottle that demands my entire devotion. Those stationary souls who have never invested in geography cannot comprehend the problem that lies concealed in the half-used bottle of ink. They have never adjourned to some Napoleonic isle to hold sessions with a new bottle of ink. Only those who know the subtle appeal of the ink bottle, that has made visible to others the meditations of their hearts. Isn't that beautiful? Such ink cannot be packed, and yet it cannot be left behind. We now have the little capsules of ink we put in certain ink pens, and some of my grandchildren have experimented with those. To abandon it would be an act of desertion, of faithlessness to a high trust. One of two things may be done with ink at the time of departure. It may be given to a resident friend, or it may be carried in the hand. What apartments I have left, ink in hand! I shall probably arrive at the gate of heaven carrying half a bottle of blue fountain pen ink. And perhaps at that port of entry there shall be some official who will appreciate the heavenly relevancy of ink, who will classify it as a possession meet for eternity. I love the way this lady phrases things and puts them in figures of speech to compare with heaven, because that's the only way that she can think of how important that is to her. And there's a beautiful picture of her writing, I think. So that is interesting for those who are behind in their writing. That maybe that will motivate you. Maybe it will motivate me and will make me take time. So, I also mentioned in several of my broadcasts how important it is to have some kind of exercise. Ladies, even if it's just turning your head, rolling your shoulders, or having a little stretch. Now, you can. I've taught you how to do searches. You just go and you type in a word that you are looking for or a subject, and a lot of pages will come up, and you pick one and you go and do your search. And on any subject, and it's like an encyclopedia, even better, because you'll get personal things too, people's personal opinions and experiences, and you'll get all kinds of things that weren't in the encyclopedia. And if you'll do a search for exercise that you need, I've even typed in exercises and stretches for sinus pain, or exercise and stretches for pain, any kind of pain. And if they only have one kind of pain, I'll go ahead and use that, and that might help. And I've recently learned that you can, and I think when we were little we were taught this. If you had any kind of pain, if you pinched a certain place on your hand, that sometimes that would help the pain, alleviate the pain. I think that's interesting, and there are whole pages on that. And there's also, one time I decided to look for stretches or exercises for bad mood. And goodness sake, there's a whole lot of them that came up, and some of them were just kind of interpreted as anxiety. And so they were very simple. They were things like holding your hands up in the air, clasping your hands in front of you tight, and different things for any kind of tension. And so I just really encourage you, find one and just do one, even if it's 30 seconds, to get your day started. And it sends good things apparently to the brain and balances your mind. And so remember this. So at home, I cannot give you any housekeeping tips because everybody's different. Some of us have wood floors, others have carpets, some of us have different situations and special problems in old homes, and some of us have new homes, and some of us maybe have more to do or have to do things by hand. Other people have machineries and things like that. So I think that the only thing I can say about homemaking is that you're in charge of it, and you make sure you do it the best you can and be in the best mood when you do it. Don't be a martyr and gripe about it or clench your jaw. That'll just give you a backache and a headache. But be happy. Do what it takes to have a good mood about it. And back in the day, back maybe around the 80s, people like ladies like Emily Barnes came up with beautiful books to make the homemaking pleasant. She had all kinds of suggestions that gave you permission to be happy and to have beauty around you, and to add finishing touches that were delightful after you'd cleaned a room, so that it wouldn't be just a lot of labor. To add something pretty, a little pillow or something pretty to your home, and also to have tea, and to have, a cup of tea and a time to relax and de-stress. And even back in the 80s, there was stress, but I don't remember it being as raw or as direct as it is these days, because everybody had things in moderation and didn't have a constant barrage of family problems and national problems. And so I think it's really important for you to take charge of your homemaking and make it the success that you want it to be. Sometimes if you get too much controversy around even what you're doing, and they will make a controversy out of homemaking, it can be stressful and you won't get anything done. And of course the news is not going to get your dishes done for you. So let your work watch your temperament at home. And I say this because, being a religious person and a preacher's wife of 52 years, I have seen things over the years. Now and then there'd be somebody that would faithfully read the scriptures every night before they went to bed. but they never translated it into their lives, and so they became difficult to get along with because they snapped at everyone, or they gave hasty, sharp replies, or they weren't kind and loving. And I think it's very, they argue all the time about the different translations of the Bible and which is the best, and there's all these people that think you should have this one or that one. But the best translation of the scriptures is the one, is the way you translate it into your life, the way you live it. And I'll give you an example. It's not Philippians 4:8, but Galatians 5:22. The fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, goodness, kindness. Can you do that? Can you do that? You can know those verses, but if you don't translate them into your life and then let them translate out to others, then it's like 1 Corinthians 13 says, if I know all the scriptures but I have not love, I'm just a bunch of noise. And so that's one of the things we have to be careful about in homemaking too. So let your work at home and your temperament be your testimony. That's how you show. And so many young women wanted to be missionaries or Bible class teachers, and they wanted to teach a Sunday school class and everything. But the real test of success spiritually is to let your work and your temperament be your testimony at home. Let your care and concern for family be your ministry. And let your life be of kindness and goodness. And remember, I had read to you out of Linda Lichter's book here, Simple Social Graces, where she had said, and she kind of made the whole book say this, and that was that it was a religion. To the Victorians, life was religion, and the religion of life was all through here, that everything had an ultimate spiritual, eternal purpose, something that they would pass on to the next generations. And I think I might have mentioned the seventh generation and the meaning of that in my previous broadcast, where they really cared. It's like Jane Austen. I often read out of or quote Jane Austen. And what was I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready to come here about what I would be saying to you, and I remembered Jane saying, yes, but Lizzie, not everyone is the same. So that's one thing I'm going to discuss later on when we find out on the people part why some people will create a controversy or an argument out of everything. But both the Jane Austen and their era and Linda Lichter's research showed that they lived with a purpose and not carelessly for the moment. Well, now, there were good people and bad people, we know that. But not carelessly for the moment, so that they'd have this fleeting feeling of happiness or pleasure, but that everything had a purpose for future generations. And even when your children were little, you might have heard them say, when I grow up and have children, because they knew they were being prepared to grow up and get married and have a home and have children of their own. They figure it out. And that's one thing that I would do with homeschooling when I was teaching them, is I'd have them read something to me, or they'd go somewhere quiet and read something that I gave them to read, and then come back while I was washing dishes and tell me what they read and what they thought about it. And then I turned them into teachers and reporters. And we did learn about reporting. It was who, what, when, where, how, and why, and which is what a lot of journalists have forgotten. And so when the children were reporting anything to me or telling me anything, they had to kind of conclude all those things, including some of their schoolwork, to tell me who, what, when, where, why, and how much. And this also solves the problem of people. We don't have that today. And the ordinary person, you can talk to an ordinary person sometimes even in the home or outside of the home, who will take off on a different tangent of the point you're trying to make with them. And you wonder, how could that be? Well, they weren't taught to have comprehension, and they don't know how. And so that's one reason, I think, for homeschooling yourself too. I mean, we talk about homeschooling, but I know a lot of you didn't or don't want to, but you can homeschool yourself with some of these principles. And you can order books from companies like ABECA and other places, and just decide to take yourself through a homeschool course, to see what it would be like if you feel you've missed out on something. So at home, let's go back to my subject. Let your work and temperament be your testimony. Let your care and concern for your family be your ministry. And let your life be a religion. And so it would be your goodness and kindness. And it's like Linda Lichter said in her book, which if I had a school at Ashcombe, you kids would use this as one of your textbooks, and I would have you make up your worksheets and a workbook for it, because she also said this very similar thing, that people from decorating their homes to cooking to their celebrations and activities and their outings and the books they read and stuff was all to perpetuate the religion of life. And certainly the Bible teaches that we have, you don't just forget God, pray to Him, go to church, and then the rest of the week live the way you want, because your whole life is religious. And so, okay, so we make, and then last time I was talking to you about how we make life tolerable, and I've forgotten which book I read out of that, about how doing things that are good and kind and useful and beautiful make life tolerable. And it makes life tolerable for you, especially. It makes everything, changes everything. So I'm going to read out of this little book, because I do emphasize manners in the home. And this is called The Do's and Don'ts of Yesterday by Eric Sloan. And if I were you, if you wanted to order this, get the best copy you can, the hardback with the fly leaf on it. It's just a better, more pleasant thing to turn the pages and touch, and it has quality paper. So here's one. And this will work this is for the home. And I always recommend this for homeschool too. Don't fail to exercise tact. I have a feeling it was written for boys and young men, but there is a section in the back for ladies. But it's general, so don't fail to exercise tact. If you have not tact, at least think first about others and next about yourself, and this will go a good way toward becoming tactful. Now, I don't know if we've ever defined it, tactfulness, or what tact is. It just means you don't be blunt. Now, a lot of people in our era now, that's coming up in this era, they think that it's not being honest if you're not like totally blunt. Linda Lichter talked about the bluntness in this book, and how it makes life less tolerable, and how it took away refinement. And to be tact means to be careful what you say. And you don't say, "You look terrible today." You say, "How are you feeling today? Is there anything I can do?" Or something like that. But you don't hit people with bluntness. And also tact would mean you wouldn't say something about someone else unless you'd worked it out with them first. And tactfulness means you would approach a subject carefully before bluntly saying something. And of course, there's no use trying to teach young people this if you yourself have not perfected it. And so tact. Write to me on the comments and give me examples of tact. For example, when we were growing up, we wouldn't be allowed to say so. We'd be tempted to say something like, look at that and something. And our parents would say, no, you can't say that. That would hurt their feelings. No one likes to be told they are sloppy, or no one likes to be told that they're ugly. So I know that we joke with each other about it sometimes if we're close friends, but that wouldn't be tactful. So I could spend a little more time explaining that, but I think that it would be one of your homeschool assignments to make you self-taught, to go and look up tact and tactfulness and think about it a little bit. It doesn't mean, now the moderns think it means that we lie about everything, or we cover up everything, or there's a smoke screen all over everything. And they pride themselves, even Linda Lichter talked about how people just jump into something in the modern century and think they're really being smart by saying something that's very inappropriate and outrageous. And you know the television does it all the time. The ads that are so inappropriate, that are trying to sell personal products, or things that expose personal, private, bodily functions and things like that. That does not show tact. And so tact just means being careful not to offend. And of course, you know, it's very hard, isn't it? Because when you're talking about manners, there are people that are offended if you're mannerly. It's just so crazy. But let's move on to some of these other things. And I mentioned when you are home and you've got your family around you, and especially you ladies, if you decide to homeschool, your life is going to be part of it. Your life is going to be part of the example and the training, and you're going to be a subject, because you cannot go and sneak an ice cream if you've told your family you're on a diet. You can't go and watch something on your phone if you've told your family, I'm not going to use my phone to such and such a time. You can't ignore someone who needs your attention if you've been teaching that the scriptures say be kind. And I really enjoy McGuffey readers, because the Christian edition ones had stories in them, sometimes about children, older children, being kind to their younger brother or sister. And it would be an example, like at one time they would be not tactful, and they would be sharp, and the brother or sister would say, Sissy, will you read to me? And Sissy would say, no. And then the mother would correct her and say, one day your brother will be a man, and do you want him and his family to be friends with you and your family? And show how these little things make a difference, and how important it is to be kind, and that so it would just show these examples of how to be kind. So now I have with me 3 more books. I believe I have 3 more books I need to go through, and I think I have the time. We're having a terrible storm, and it's getting dark, but I have with me one of my grandchildren that comes and stays once in a while. I think he wants to keep an eye on Mr. S and me, make sure we don't make any sudden moves or do something crazy. And he is an old soul, and he loves Dickens, and he works at home, and he has to clock in, and clock out, because he works for a very good company. But he puts his earphones on, and sometimes he doesn't, and he listens to Dickens, and he likes classical music. So that's just fine with me. I love the atmosphere of walking around, sweeping and cleaning, and I get to listen to all this. But I asked him one time, because he was also homeschooled, And he's now 25. And I asked him one time, and he got a job. One of his first jobs was going to an office of I believe it was either an employment company or an insurance company. I'm not sure which. It really doesn't matter. But he went and put in his hours. He's very good at what he does. And I said, do people ever ask you, ever tell you that you missed out on a social life, because you were homeschooled? And he says, no. He says, yes, they do. But I always say, if I really was concerned about it, if I missed out on doing stupid things, he said, if I missed out on doing stupid things, I could always go and do stupid things with the co-workers. And he has all these neat answers, and he gives examples of how he stayed at work and didn't go to any of the social events that these companies plan sometimes because there's so much drinking. And he says they all come back sick. And he says to himself, so much for social life, or so much for freedom. It's painful. And so that was just a little human interest story I wanted you to know. I think I might have to turn a light on because I'm having to read my notes here. So now I wanted to read, while I was talking about exercise, this old book here, Christian Charm Course by Emily Hunter, the red one, the one with the red cover, that's the one I would suggest if you want to buy it. But it had a page in here on exercise. And I was doing that when I was a teenager. In fact, I think I started, this was one of my first books when I was a teenager, and they're still printing it. But what I did is I copied it off, enlarged it, and put it in a plastic page so that I could still do these things. And after I got married, I just quit doing them because I could never see any difference in my weight or muscle or anything like that. So I just quit doing them. But what happened was, if you're tempted to quit a habit that you think isn't benefiting you, I thought I couldn't take the time out of my life to do it because you get so busy after you get married. But what I discovered was this very important thing. The exercise was benefiting me. It was preventing me from losing muscle, and it was preventing me from gaining weight. And I never thought about that because what I was trying to do is get really strong and lose weight. And it never made any difference. It just didn't seem to make any difference. But then what happened when I gave it up is I had flabbiness and weight gain. And I didn't realize that at least even if you don't see any progress, you're preventing from getting worse. So I would say stay with your old routines if you possibly can. If you've stopped having your morning tea and your morning devotional because there's so many demands on you, and you think in order to be a good homemaker or a good wife and mother you have to give yourself up, that's not good for you because you're like you have to keep well because your family depends on it, and you might think that it doesn't change anything, but it might prevent you from deteriorating or getting sick. I want to read something out of Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I like to read what Roger says. It's amazing how she wrote about this young man. He was a student of nature, and he was talking to his father. He had just met Molly outside, and she was sitting on a bench crying because she had just heard that her father was going to get married again after being a widower for so long. And Roger came upon her, and she worked for the family because she helped look after his mother who was sick. And he had tried to, help her, and he said, I know you feel sorry for it, but it's always better to look on the bright side, and things might not turn out so bad. And so she parted with him and went back into the house to see Mrs. Gibson if she needed anything. And Mr. Gibson saw Mr. Hamley, his father, said, "Where have you been, Roger? Where is Molly?" Miss Gibson, I mean. And he tells, where he's been out. He said, I've been out dredging. I left my net on the terrace walk. I found Miss Gibson there, crying as if her heart would break. Her father is going to be married again. And his mother said, "Married again? You don't say so." "Yes, he is, and she's taking it very hard. Mother, I think if you could send someone to her with a glass of wine, a cup of tea, or something of that sort, she was nearly fainting." "I'll go to her myself, poor child," said Mrs. Hamley, rising. "Indeed you must not," said he, laying his hand on her arm. "We have kept you waiting already too long. You are looking quite pale." "Hammond can take it," he continued, ringing the bell. She sat down again, almost stunned with surprise. "Whom is he going to marry?" "I don't know. I didn't ask her, and she didn't tell me." "I dare say I ought to have asked, but somehow I'm not a good one on such occasions. I was as sorry for her as I could be, and yet I couldn't tell what to say." "What did you say?" "I gave her the best advice in my power." "Advice? You should have comforted her." "I think that if advice is good, it's the best comfort," he said. "That depends on what you mean by advice." And to their surprise, Molly came in, trying to look as usual. She had bathed her eyes and arranged her hair, and was making a great struggle to keep from crying, and to bring her voice into order. Now this is interesting, because in the movie they did a very good job of it, where it showed her breaking down in tears. Her life was just torn apart. But she pulled herself together, she washed her face, she sniffed, and she wiped her face and just put on this plastic smile. But we were taught to do that. But unfortunately, the moderns, who wanted to break down every covering, every facade, everything, kind of like cynic, and anything that was not really raw, or they just want you to lay your soul out there and not keep anything from anybody. And so these things are gone now. People don't cry and then straighten up and come back and try to start over. They don't do that. They can't get over it. And so here it said, there was something in here that I thought you would like, that Mr. Brian Kozlowski said, that Molly showed, after she had really had a good cry over her father and was so devastated, and I'm sure she was devastated quite a lot longer after that. It might have taken her weeks to be accustomed to it, but she got up and she kind of tried to present herself. So he says in this book, the Jane Austen diet, we now know, after explaining what Jane Austen showed in her books, how stress had to be very temporary. He said, we now know that stress should only be a quick, short-term sensation. And I say this to homemakers because home life is emotional. There will be tears. There will be hurt feelings. And that's why we have to be really careful what we say to be kind. And there will be mistakes made, and there will be people who will maybe not so nice to you. And I want to talk to you about that later. I hope I'll have time. We now know that stress should only be a quick, short-term sensation. Many animals benefit from the involuntary stress reaction. Its primary purpose has been to keep us and our ancestors alive during life-threatening situations, stopping normal bodily functions and diverting all energy into heart, brain, and limbs that help us quickly escape or surmount danger. But I like that he said, we now know that stress should only be a quick, short-term sensation. But now there's prolonged stress, and I think that's the most dangerous thing. And so that's why caregivers professional caregivers are taught and paid. Sometimes they're given a little money that they have to spend on self-care, and it's called self-care, but I just call it revival or maintenance. And mothers and homemakers used to know about this. I mean, they knew, just like I had been reading in the Jane Austen books, when it was time to retreat and go be alone and be quiet, when it was time to go for a walk and have a little cry, they knew when it was time to stop and have a cup of tea, and they knew how to pamper themselves. But today I think people are shamed out of a lot of this. They're made to feel that it's vain or indulgent to take care of themselves. We had an aunt who, when we went to see her, she'd come out and visit, and then after a while we'd notice she wasn't there. Well, she would just go lay down. It was just a custom, but she wouldn't announce it. She just would just disappear. You wouldn't see her. And she was in her room. She just laid down during the day. And especially if you're a homemaker, I think it's very important to have at least a nice chair or something that you can relax in. And that's all part of it. I can't tell you how to clean your house, but you can find all that information in other places on the web, and lots of books have it too. So first of all, I want to talk about, so we're in the people part, kids. This is going to be fun, and I don't mean to laugh at it too much. Some people are extremely disturbed, and we don't want to make fun of them. But when I was growing up, people did make fun of you if you had problems, and we learned quite quickly to hide a lot of our resentments, anger, and frustration from our brothers. I grew up in a big family, 5 brothers and 1 sister, and they could take it to town, as they say. If you had any kind of disappointment, complaint, or problem, they would just tease you to death forever, never let you forget it. And I am now vital, and my half-vital brothers are still teasing me over some little mistake or disappointment or complaint I had when I was younger, when I was 16 or something like that. So we learn not to reveal too much. So I want to read a poem here about the simple things. And that's what's important, at home, these simple things, like sitting down and coloring with a child. And I think I don't like the adult coloring books at all. They just boggle my mind. They're just too complicated for me. I'd rather just draw the picture myself. But still, there were still things that we did and that we probably need to keep up. And I think one of the reasons for stress at home is we've given up a lot of things. We've given up a lot of things that buffer it, and we need to go back to some of these simple things. But I want to read a poem called The Collected Verse of Edgar Guest. I want to read a poem to you, or a poem, The Simple Things. And I've explained who he was in the previous broadcast. The Simple Things. And I want to preface it by saying that there are a lot of young people who want to go into therapy, or they want to go into some kind of psychiatric type profession. And it is sad in a way too, because to live the simple life and to maybe have a life where where it's not so high pressured might be better for people. Honestly, I don't know if I could sit and listen to someone's problems all day long, even if I got paid for it, because we do that at home, don't we? We do that as homemakers and moms and grandmoms and friends and they don't pay us. They don't pay us for this stuff. The Simple Things, it's called. I would not be too wise, so very wise, that I must sneer at simple songs and creeds. That is what 20th century radicals do, and 20th and 21st century radicals do. Sneer at simple songs and creeds. and let the glare of wisdom blind my eyes to humble people and their humble needs. I would not care to climb so high that I could never hear the children at their play, could only see the people passing by and never hear the cheering words they say. I would not know too much to smile at trivial errors of the heart and hand, nor be too proud to play the friend the while, nor cease to help and know and understand. I would not care to sit upon a throne, or build my house upon a mountain top, where I must dwell in glory all alone, and never friend come in, or poor man stop. God grant that I may live upon this earth and face the tasks which every morning brings, and never lose the glory and the worth of humble service and simple things. There are other poems in here where he describes those simple things and lays them out, like a book, a letter, a cup of tea, a walk, a flower, a child, a candle at the window, things like that, and just learning these simple things. And those are very important for the home. Now, I believe I have read everything that I brought to the table here, and I want to continue now on the people part, because as a homemaker, you're going to, especially those of you who are vital, are going to recognize some of this. And you could never get us to talk, you couldn't get other homemakers to talk about this, because it was just an unmentionable. If you had special, what we used to joke and call them special needs people in your family or in your home, or somebody that was somehow in your life and they were special needs, because you had to constantly tiptoe around them. Anything could set them off, and we used to call them special needs. But I'm in no way making fun of special needs people who have real handicaps. But we used to say that they were special needs because you could be around them, and even with just the silent air, they could start an argument. Isn't that interesting? They could argue with the air. Or you could say something as a greeting, and somehow they could turn that into an accusation or an argument, and you didn't know, wait a minute, am I arguing about something? And I know somebody that is very, she's very sensitive, and so people around her like to trigger her. They like to say things that they know upset her, because that'll just get her going, and they like to make her appear as though she is a constant basket case. And that is so sad to do that to people. And young people sometimes do this to their mothers or their brothers or sisters, is they'll create anxiety, and then the loved one or the other person reacts and cries or begs them to stop or something, and keep them in a constant state of commotion. And so we must teach and act in such a way that we do not do that to people, and teach our children not to do that. And one way that they keep her, I would say, in a constant state of anxiety is not answering when she speaks or asks a question or wants to communicate, is just to ignore her. And people like this, where their children or siblings will treat her like this because they like to keep her in a constant state of uncertainty and anxiety. And so there are people like this. This is the people section, and we're talking about people that do this. And so another thing is there's finally the possibility of jealousy. Now, we homemakers, we haven't got time to be jealous of anybody. I'm not jealous if somebody gets a new car, a new couch, a new washer or dryer. It doesn't bother me at all, because they also got a new bill and they also got a new payment, or they also got a lot less in their savings. So it doesn't bother me at all. But there will be people, and it occurred to me that I thought everybody was just like me, that I went through life. I grew up on a homestead in Alaska, and most of the homesteaders, we were enjoying surviving. We were enjoying more of a, I would say, we lived indoors, but we enjoyed the scenery, and we enjoyed the berries coming on in summer, and the luxury of wading in the water, and we enjoyed the winters, and we enjoyed life at home, but things didn't matter to us as much, and so you couldn't be jealous. And so as homemakers, I think all of us think that everybody is just like us, and we don't realize that one of the reasons they argue, or one of the reasons that they will set somebody up to be in a constant state of anxiety, is because they are jealous. They don't want us to be at peace. They want to disturb us. And so that may happen. And if it does, and if it's one of your children or somebody else, you've got to remember something, and that is that they are not your equal, and probably never will be, because you'll pass away before they get there. And they do not have the life experience or knowledge to behave in a mature way. And sometimes I think parents expect, when their children reach the age of 18 or 21 or something, that automatically they're going to be a mature adult just like you. But you have to be compassionate about this, because they're not capable of it yet, and they have a lot of things coming at them from media and from peers and from society that maybe we didn't. And so we have to be patient with them, but we don't have to allow them to disturb our homes. So we have to have some policy. And so if you do have someone that's disturbing your home, and they want to impose certain rules on you, then you can just impose your rules right back and say, I understand your policy and your needs and your rules, but these are my rules and these are my needs. And one of my needs is that I can't have anyone shouting at me, or something like that, Or if they want to negotiate, you can learn to negotiate. You can get a good book on negotiation, and learn how to negotiate with someone who is imposing on you, or treating you as though you had offended them, or something like that. And you can actually get peace in your home through that. And so I think if you've had any kind of association with people who have special needs because they can't be pleased, or they're offended because their life isn't going anywhere and they want to blame the parents or something like that. And that's going on a lot nowadays, isn't it? I hear all the time of parents whose children are in some kind of conflict with them because they believe that the parents held them back, or brought them up too carefully, and didn't allow them enough freedom, and didn't allow them to have a fancy whatever, And so this kind of thing, I think a lot of homemakers, you lose your enthusiasm, for your family and your home if you've got a critic there. So that will have to be dealt with. And I'm just saying it might not happen to everybody, but I do hear this is one of the subjects that I was asked to address, and I'd have to do a whole lot more investigation of it to understand. But there are grown children who are actually jealous. They won't tell you this, and they won't tell you why, but they're actually jealous of their parents, and they'll tell them off on something else, some other subject, some other resentment, but they're actually jealous because there they are trying to live their own life and not succeeding. And they come and see their parents. Their parents are stable, have been in the same place a long time, maybe the same job, have a very stable life. And the child has been here and there and everywhere, can't settle down, maybe gone from spouse to spouse, maybe not ever been able to get a hold of their lives. And so they're resentful. They're resentful of the parents with the very thing that would have given them a life would be to stay with the way in which they were trained and taught. And I don't like to leave on any kind of a dark note or a sad note. So I want to make sure that you know that you can go to a website called Christian Motivation Devotion or something like that on YouTube, and you can subscribe to that and get something. I don't know if you get it on your phone or your email or what, so that you can listen. Those are very, very good. And I was listening to one today about praying a psalm, and and to do that every day. And the exercise people are like that. They'll say, do this every day for 7 days. Do this arm exercise every day for 7 days, and you'll see the difference. Or for belly fat, do this for 7 days, or do this for 20 days. Well, now the devotional ones are doing the same thing, and that is read this psalm every day and then they would have a different emphasis on it every day. And I would really suggest that you do something like that, and also make some goals and activities for yourself, because God has a future and a hope for you too. And I would like to sometime come and just talk to young people, especially young people at home that are restless and wanting to leave before the parents are ready for them to leave, before they have it all set up for them, to prevent some of the hardship and the sorrow that they might be bringing on themselves by doing this. I'd like to just come sometime and just talk to you, see if you would listen. So this isn't just for we vital people. I'd like to talk to the children too. So if you would like me to cover a subject, I could do a little research on it. If you would suggest it to me, you can email me if you want to, or you could just put it in the comments here on the post on the blog. So ladies, God bless you. Thank you so much. Those of you who sent me notes, I will try to get back to you. I know how important that is, and I love you, and stay close to Christ. Bye.